Hello everyone, welcome to Royal Cyber and myself Shamsuddin. Today I'm going to present you on the critical topic API security framework. Before diving into API security framework, let me tell you why this API security is very important by looking into this latest threats which has happened in 2025. The first thing which you can see it is a reachable accession. Imagine if a user input can crash your app just like pressing the secret shutdown buttons. It's that's called a reachable accession. What it's like, for example, if you have an application where the user is using it normally, but the hacker is trying to give an kind of an input like a junk values or copying paste huge text, which is crashing your entire application and bringing your server down. This is commonly happening, which is still exist in 2025. That is the first thing on the top, which you can see as a reachable accession. And next is divide by zero. Divide by zero, you know that in mathematic calculation, when you are dividing something by zero, but it's not gives an infinity, but in terms of an application, which is an infinity, which is still crashing your system and still common and dangerous. To avoid this, what you need to do is like you need to have some kind of an arithmetic logic, exceptional handling, and to prevent this kind of an divide by zero arithmetic attacks. Insufficient transport layer encryption, where no HTTPS is applied on your application, making your data transparent to everyone. So it's not mean that HTTPS you need to apply a certificate like system generated or the server generated certificate. You should be make sure that it is used by you should be using some third party SSL certificate, and make sure that you are using SHA-2 algorithm, because the SHA-1 algorithm was hacked in 2017, which is no more is used. But if you are using it, it is recommended to change to SHA-2 algorithm, and make sure that your application is transmitted from the source to destination in encrypted manner. Next thing is click checking. This is one of the tricks which is happening, like changing some rename the buttons like a cancel button, which is actually triggering the buying options. This is one of the attacks which has happened in 2025 as well and still existing. And next one is known vulnerability. Okay, we are this is one is like we are still using in our application some outdated libraries in our code, which is making a hacker to easily enter into your applications. So it is like keeping your door key under the mat, and the hackers knows where the lock is actually. And this is also our latest threats which is happening in 2025, which is continuing of the previous slide. Is a wrong handler deployed. Wrong handler deployed is like, for example, logic like a credit card logic is written on the login page. So which is like the usually the developers are doing like a copy paste, where they are forgot to notice that wrong kind of an routing is there in their application. This is one of the a tricky thing where the developers miss to notice, where the hackers knows to trigger this kind of an attack, this wrong handler deployment attacks. Next thing is an infinite loop. Code gets stuck in a loop and never stops. That like apps going saying it is a processing one. This is also one thing like where for example, if you are doing kind of an operation where if you are going from back to front, then the application gets says that processing. Instead, it should say that timeout kind of an operations, where the application missed to add those kind of an functionality, leaves this kind of an attack like infinite loops are happening. So file and directory extendable accessible. If the sensitive files are exposed online, yes, still is happening. For example, this mostly happen like when the application is having some file upload kind of an functionality, where the hacker will try to give some kind of an double dot slash to enter into your root access and get some file access. So make sure that your API functionality is like not exposing the sensible directory, not allowing the access like root access by denying access setup. So that by this way you can protect your applications. And next thing is a misrelease of resources. Or when your application forgot to clean up, it's like keeping hoarding your memory over the time. The system just getting some kind of breathing issues. These happen like, for example, if you are using some kind of static variables, or which is filling our heap memory. I'm talking about the Java application, one of the example where these memory leak happen when you forgot to release that resource, which is not allowing the other user to enter into your application. So entirely this your application get locked, and it will not allow other users to access your application. This is one of the thing is like you should be make sure that you are releasing your resource when you are after using it. So next one is non-vulnerabilities again. Oh, as I said in a previous slide, yes, we are keep repeating it because we know that these problems are there, but we are ignoring it and putting our application on the production directly. So this leads a hacker to enter into your application very easily because we are knowingly doing this. These are the latest threats which has happened in 2025. Next slide, which is talk about threats for large language models. As you know that LLM is getting more popular nowadays. Most of the applications are using these AI models in their applications, where the hackers are also using this AI models injection to enter into your systems. Because prompt injection, first you can see that tricking an AI with an sneaky input like asking chatbot to reveal some secrets, and for example asking the chatbot what the kind of an LLM models you are built on, where the AI is revealing the functionality which is written in the backend. So these kind of prompt injections also happening on AI based applications. Next one is sensitive information disclosure. Yes, sometimes what AI is filling some kind of confidential information if you are not writing your LLM logic properly, so it fills some accidental data leaks. So make sure that your LLM is very strong and not disclosing any kind of sensitive data. Supply chain vulnerability. Yes, if AI uses some kind of an unsafe third party which is not been verified by you, it building like if you are, it's like a shaky foundation. You are building a house. So that's a supply chain vulnerability. Next one is insecure plugin design. Yes, badly built plugin can spoke only in a defense, like leaving a backdoor opens, like you are keeping your weak code in your AI making your backdoor open, entering. You have a strong in your front end door, but your back door is open. So this is all about insecure plugin design. Make sure that you make your AI design very properly before putting into a productions, a customer hand, I mean. Training data poisoning. Yes, if you feed your AI bad example, it learns wrong things. It like teaching a kid with a fake book. So make sure that you are training your AI with the proper good languages, so that if it's like it detects it's a flaws input or some kind of bad input, it should say that I'm not uh, trained on these kind of an input. So next slide also talk about the LLM model threats. The first the thing is model theft. Some copying some smart model into without permission. I'm as I said in the previous slide, your model is written where AI is disclosing that model details to the hackers. So he just copying your model without your permissions. So over reliance on LLM output. Yeah, blindly trusting AI answer is like believing everything on the internet. We should be double check before into the actions. Make sure that LLM outputs are proper before giving this LLM based AI based application to customer hands. Insecure output handling. Yes, if you don't check that AI sends out, you might pass some dangerous or harmful content or downstream. This is also happening because if you the input for recent, I can say that in Chat GPT and other kind of an LLM like Gemini, there the text to image processing was misused because they have missed to notice that some wrong kind of an inputs are given and they're generating a wrong images. So they stopped those features in recently attacked on. So this insecure output handling is very important when you're handling with the AI based kind of an applications. So next thing is an excessive agency, letting AI makes big decisions alone. So this like handling a steering wheel to autopilot without the brake. So giving a AI high valid kind of an admin access can lead to some kind of a dangerous issues. So make sure that you have some limited access to AI when you are handling AI based applications. Insecure plugin supply chain, using a plugin from unknown source. As I said in the previous, you don't know what that third party is doing, but you are using in your application. Is always risking installing a random application in from the internet directly to your system. So make sure that whatever third party you are using it, make sure that you know what kind of model it is and what on what basis it works. That is very important when you are dealing with the third party plug into your applications. And next slide, which I am going to talk about non-human identity threats. The first thing is improper offboarding. So forget to cut off access to bot service like for example, if you are given some access to our applications and to the users, or but the user is no more is using it, but still that application is open. So it is possible for entering that application very easily with that credential. It is like leaving your ex-employee payroll open. So make sure that when you are doing some kind of onboarding action, make sure that you change the credentials. So this is very this kind of an attacks also happening in recent days. That is the one thing is of improper offboarding. Secret leakage, secret API key is hidden in the code. That's it's like writing your password on the sticky notes. As you can see that as you see, then some of the code, like they will hard code your API code directly in your programming. So a hacker will do some kind of a reverse engineering and take that API key and they can use it. So make sure that you kind of use an security vault to access this kind of an API key in your applications. Vulnerable third party NHI. So as I said, when you are using some kind of a third party services, you make sure that it is safe to use in your applications. Insecure authentication, loose check on non-human users, letting anyone to get into the say for example non-human user access, like for example if your application is used by the human and also it used by the AI based system, and make sure that check is made whether this user is having the proper privileges. That is insecure authentication. So if it is AI is having some kind of an access to enter into your admin privileges and getting into your server, then it is dangerous. Make sure that insecure authentications or it's not happening on your applications. Overprivileged NHI, giving a bot admin power that don't need it. For example, like you are giving the bot access to an, as I said earlier, you are giving the admin access to enter into your server. That is like handling a key room cleaner to a key CO key to your room cleaner. And next thing on non-human identity threats is insecure cloud deployment. Yes, this often happening because your application will be working very fine and will have not having any kind of an production issue, but you are forgot to change the kind of an privileges, setting some private and public access. So make sure that when you are putting in your application in the cloud, so make sure that the privileges are set it properly. Long-lived secrets, you are not expiring your API keys. So for example, if you have an API key, and make sure that it is expired after 1 hour or 2 hour, and not like setting it for 365 days. So this is one of the threats is long-lived secret threats. Environment isolation. So no, there is no wall between a dev environment, test environment, or production environment. This is one of the big. For example, if the credential is used on dev also in production, which is crashing your entire application. So which is easily for someone to enter into a production server very easily. So that is this is also environment isolation, and NHS issue both talks about this identity. So make sure that when you are using different environment, you make sure that credentials are different. So the last one is a human use of NHI credential. For example, as I said, if you are using if your application is using human and also AI based system, make sure that which is used. You have to mention in your application this is used from it's AI is coming from the human. Otherwise, there will not be no audit trail to find where the issues has happened. So these kind of threats or comes under the non-human identical threats. On the next slide, which I want to talk about authorization and authentication threats. And These APIs are the entry point for any application. First will be the authentication API, then followed by the authorization. Some API will have the both combinations. So a hacker will try to enter into your application through these APIs. The one of the attack is like broken object level authorization, and another one is weakened missing token handling. So usually the APIs will not have the session from one API to another API. There is no session. Instead, what they will use kind of a token. Usually, these tokens should be properly encrypted, should be having some properly expiry time. So missing this, what will happen? Like the hacker will easily tap this token and enter into your server easily. So these are the two major attacks performing on these APIs. You should be make sure that you protecting your API from these kind of an attack. Authorization mainly. Authorization happen like the user access getting the admin privileges. He gets into user login and gets for example, if you have an air ticket application where the user access privilege is given, and from these user access privileges he is entering into your server with changing some kind of tampering and getting the admin access and filling these entire tickets. So this called an broken object level authorization, which has happened in 2025. This is one of the top 10 OAuth API security issues. So you should be making sure that your application is protected from these attacks. The next thing is unrestricted resource consumption. It's like you are allowing your API to too many requests. So that you are what happened like if you are allowing too many requests, your server will spikes out and your gets hangs. So make sure that you use kind of an rate limiting. You should be make sure that you are using some kind of an gateway to protect these kind of an unrestricted resource consumptions. Next thing is security misconfiguration. Yes, what happened like we are opening the Swagger in the production system and now also exposing some dev environment endpoints in productions. This leads to some security misconfiguration attacks. So next one is mass assignment. So auto binding the sensitive field via JSON body. For usually request will be sent from the mobile application will be kind of an JSON request. So some fields may be guessable, like for example, is admin is equal to true, and then the attacker may set, so it will enter into your API easily. So some guessing kind of an endpoint should be disabled. That is called an mass assignment attacks. Next slide talks about input and injection threats. So this caused by the unvalidated or improper handle input. For example, first one will be injection attack like SQL injection. Not only on the SQL database, it perform on the NoSQL database as well. Injection is like, for example, parameter they are sending one is equal to one, which always return as a true in the database, which returns the data. Without an authentication user ID and password, the hacker will send the query with one is equal to one, which will get an access. That is called the injection attacks. Next one is a mass assignment. As I said in the previous slide, we are sending some exposed unexpected parameters in the request where the guessable for like admin is equal to true, so it gets an access of the backend. So you should be make sure that these guessable endpoint should be disabled. These fields should be disabled when you are exposing the API outside. Then parameter tampering, modifying the request parameter to alter the behavior, like what they will do, the like by read to write or delete kind of an tampering. So you should be make sure that your API having the proper access to the proper user privileges setup. Next one is business logic threats. This is the main critical issues. Most of the developers will focus on the functionality, but fail to notice that what a kind of an attack can be performed on this business logic. So exploiting flaws in the application, so functionality on the process. So first one is unrestricted access to business flow. User can execute high value action, for example, order processing or fund transfer without a restrictions. He'll try to give kind of a request. So this comes under the unrestricted because there is no restriction performed on the applications. So next one is rate limiting bypass. As I said in the previous slide, there is no rate limiting from the one user if he is trying to giving too many requests or too many changes on the password reset or kind of an triggering. So this leads to some improper access and get some kind of an access to the server, making your server to be too busy with the attacks. So that is a rate limiting bypass. So improper workflow enforcement bypassing step like in critical process registration or transaction, as I said, the both are quietly related, improper workflow and the rate limiting. So from one API to another API, so these API call should be properly monitored and registered in your database. Next one is discovery and enumeration threats attack that involves on information gathering to find some weak endpoints. So improper inventory management, forgotten or deprecated APIs or left exposed, often outdated security. For example, you have an API with a version in like V1 and V2, but you are opening this V2 outside, but you forgot to close the V1 version API. So this comes under the improper inventory management. So you should manage your inventory properly. Excessive data exposure. Yes, the API should not expose too many data which is not at all required for that application. For example, server information or date information or kind of an time details. So these details should not be exposed. Whatever the necessary details should be exposed to the endpoint, that should be exposed outside. Then one is a lack of endpoint hardening. Like there should not be any predictable, like for example, admin or a debug or a delete kind of an endpoint should be avoided. You should be renaming should be a perfect or strong endpoint name. So these kind of and practice will avoid discovery of endpoints. And so next one is discovery and inventory endpoint, or the silent killers, where you can see that shadow APIs and Zombo APIs are still there, where deployed but not tracked and deprecated but not decompromised. So these are the problems are happening. For this solution, what do you need to have like inline traffic analyze tool like WAF. WAF is nothing but web-based application firewall, so which will protect from some XSL attack, kind of an attacks. So next one is a combine of open API difference in runtime discovery. So no name is from the IBM product. From the runtime attacks, it can prevent from the runtime attack when the attack is performed. The how to also perform the same and XCAN also same. So enforce come tagging like you need to make your API register properly. These are the main thing you need to perform as a solution on when you are handling a problem on the shadow APIs and zombie APIs. So next slide talks about resource and infrastructure threats. So any application which you are deploying it is deployed on the server. So mainly the hacker motive is like to enter into that infrastructure and making that server hang or destroy. So first thing is like supporting the API, like overloading the API by sending a large request. So that is, as I said, for example, your server is small where you cannot hand 1 lakh request or 2 lakh request, your server will crash. So make sure that this unrestricted resource consumption, denial of service by using a gateway. So gateway is the only thing where you can protect your unrestricted resource consumption, but you can avoid by using API log. But the main solution will be like you need to have an API gateway and server side forgery. Use the API to make unauthorized request to internal system, but you should be make sure that unauthorized request should be blocked, like unauthorized request like 404 or 501 kind of a request which is tampering from the status record. And security misconfiguration exposing debug mode, verbose error message, unnecessary endpoint. So you should be removing that. When usually what happened, like when the developer are developing in the dev environment, they forgot to remove those kind of an configuration in the production environment. So exposing some debug or verbose kind of error message, so unnecessary endpoints, these lead to a hacker to enter into your production server very easily. And next thing is a third party and the supply chain threat. This is the one of the major threats because we are unknown about the third party functionality or the logic which is written in their application, but we are using in our API. Make sure that trusting response from third party without validation. We should be validating this third party API properly before integrating into a production system. Broken integration authentication, improper token handling when connecting to the other system. This is also an important thing when you are sending from token from one API to another API. Make sure this token has a expiry parameters to so that it will not live for too many days or too many years. There will be like on expiry like 999 or 1,000 days or 2,000 days. So we should be set it as 1 hour or 2 hour kind of thing, which will protect from broken integration authentication attacks. Next one is third-party dependency vulnerability. The SDK or any kind of an system you are using in libraries in your application, you should be make sure what these third-party APIs are doing, what these APIs SDKs are built on top or on what before entering into your production API ecosystems. So this is a very important slide which talks about securing by designing your API. Right. So before developing your application, you should design your API. So always version your APIs. So always the design your API like version like V1 and V2. Always block your wildcard endpoints and also validate your JSON kind of and fields to block or reject kind of an logic in your backend. Predefine your response structure. Always define your structure like the response should be 4 field or 5 field or 2 field, not should be leak on the entire details. So there are devs sec hooks you can use like OpenAPI linters or JIT pre-commit hooks for contact validations. This is the final slide, and what in it, this kind of threats are happening. What I need to do? Test the API like an attacker. Okay, you need to test the API like an attacker. There are testing strategy which you can follow is one is a passive testing, another one is an active testing. Passive testing, what it will do is like it will not do any stress kind of onto the server. This just to do some kind of a validation where you can see that linting, schema validation, and contract testings. So active testing is like a fuzzing, it will change the parameters, do some kind of an attack, stress to the server. These are the two testing strategy. But these two testing strategy, you cannot perform it manually. You need to have a API scanning tool, which I can suggest to like Secure API, which is built by Royal Cyber. So it is built on top of OAuth standards, which perform the deep active scanning as well as the passive scanning, and performing the auth-based deep scanning also. And it perform if you want to fix that issue, there will option like you give the repository access. It will get the source code and it will scan the source code and it will give the remediations without affecting your business logic. And you can fix it by using AI-based LLM, and then it you can commit to your source code directly to your repository. So this mechanism will not affect your business logic. It gives a protection to your APIs. This is all about tagging and solutions on API security. We'll come up with the new topic in coming sessions. Thank you.